Hello, poodling arounders. Today's podcast is what you could describe as a right rum do. If you don't know what that means, here in the UK, it means something that's a little odd or strange. Back in the 16th century, however, it originally described something excellent or great, and that's really what we're doing today as we explore the Cumbrian visitor attraction that is called the Rum Story. I'm delighted that my guest today is Louise McKenna, the manager of the Rum Story. For someone who's just a little bit fascinated by the age of exploration, smuggling, and pirates, this was a dream for me. Let's hear what I discovered. Hi, Louise. So today we're going to be talking about the Rum Story, which is a British visitor attraction that I've personally always found fascinating because of its historical links. So please could you tell us a little bit about the background to your attraction, how long it's been in Whitehaven, and what historical era your attraction focuses on?
Well, the Rum Story's been a part of Whitehaven for 23, almost 24 years now. It opened back in on the 17th of May 2000. Very little changed about the attraction in that time. We tell the story right through British history, I suppose, from sort of Christopher Columbus discovering the Caribbean, right through until the modern day today. But the biggest part would probably focuses on around 1785, which was when the business in Whitehaven was established, which was the Jeffersons wine merchants. They officially opened in 1785 and branded their rum at the same time. So that is the main focus of the attraction.
So here we are then in the 18th, maybe early 19th centuries, and we're in the port of Whitehaven, which, if people don't know, that's on the coast of Cumbria, isn't it? So can you paint a bit of a picture of what Whitehaven would have been like then? Because it was the third largest port in the UK at that time, wasn't it?
It was, yes. I mean, probably a good one that I heard is that it was the M1 to the USA. So it was a really busy shipping port. It would have been very modern, very cosmopolitan town. There was lots of shipbuilding going on due to the coastal trading of coal and salt. They were exported out to America. And then obviously brought back rum, molasses, limes, sugar, everything that goes along with that triangle trade.
And all this hustle and bustle. I mean, the rum is pretty big news, isn't it? And you tell the story of this rum through the history of the Jeffersons, who you mentioned a few minutes ago, don't you? One particular family at the centre of it all. But who were they? And you know, what is the heritage of your building there?
Well, Whitehaven itself, it was one of the first planned harbours in England. So that was Sir John Lowther back in 1604 actually planned one of the earliest harbours there. It was finished in 1634. So Whitehaven has been a really big town since then. Yeah, so it was actually Henry's son Robert, who came back to Whitehaven in 1785 and actually built the building that we are still currently housed in today. It's been in constant use ever since then, going through lots of different sort of eras, from bonded warehouse. It would have had its own stables. There would have been living quarters, right through until now, where, you know, it's still a trading as a shop, still selling the Jefferson's rum.
That's amazing, isn't it? So, I mean, I think that's what's so compelling about your attraction, is that the whole story, all of this history is actually told through the story of rum, isn't it? It's a conduit for explaining and interpreting so much about the society and the history. Do you think that's a fair description of what you do there?
I really do think it is. I mean, rum is one of the oldest spirits in the world. It was the first one, apparently, that was ever used for non-medicinal purposes. So got such a place in everybody's hearts. I mean, especially around Whitehaven, it's a really big influence, I think, over the years. So to have the story of rum told through the eyes of the Jeffersons family, you can tell so much of the world's history and English history within that sort of
yeah.
something.
And that's what I love about it, because it's such a clever way of doing it. I think that makes it really appealing. But you know, it was, a little bit about rum, but that wasn't all that was going on in Whitehaven, was it? And within the Jefferson family trade, they were trading in so many more things, weren't they?
They were, yes. I mean, it was mainly started importing wine. The Jeffersons, they had wine that came in from Spain and Portugal and Madeira. Rum and sugar and molasses would come in from the Caribbean, but they were also really well known for their sherry, which came in from the east of India as well. So they did have a lot of fingers in a lot of pies.
Oh, I love a bit of sherry. I didn't know that. So were they using their own ships for this? And what sort of perils might they be encountering when they were on the high seas?
Yeah, I mean, they owned a lot of ships over the years. Probably the most famous would be the British Queen and the Theseus. But they also had other ones, the Antigua, the Ian, the Derwent, the Panther. And they would have gone out all around the world. I mean, perils on board, they would be the same for anybody that went out. There was, no preservatives of the food, so they would have to rely on salting and pickles for the longer journeys, which, could lead to scurvy and things like that, with not having vitamins. Periods away from home as well. So there was a lot of perils for the families that were left in Whitehaven as well, when their husbands and family were out at sea, worrying about, if they were ever going to make it back, because you couldn't mobile phone or send an SOS message back in the 18th century.
Yeah. And I think, if I'm right, I think, didn't Wordsworth's brother, I think he died on board a ship because he was sort of on a merchant vessel a lot of the time. I think that vessel sank. So there must have always been worries about what was going to happen and whether they were going to come home, wasn't there? Now, the whole story is kind of entwined with that of the slave trade, isn't it? Can you explain the family involvement with that and tell us how you tackle this sensitive topic within the attraction? Because it has to be told in the right way, doesn't it?
It does, definitely. The history of it is Henry Jefferson, who would be born, I think it was in 1751. He actually, well, he was a bit of a bad boy of the family, so he was sent off on merchant ships and ended up being sent off to Antigua, where he married a plantation owner's daughter called Anne Tweedy. In 1832, the Jeffersons would then go on to buy the plantation, and the enslaved people would come with that plantation as part of the property. Not as humans, they would have been treated as property, unfortunately. Our story, it informs and educates people. We acknowledge that it was an awful part of history. It did happen. We tell about the conditions that they would have travelled in on the ships between Africa and the Caribbean. Awful hard work was expected, and how they're snatched from their families in Africa. We are working at the moment as well with Anti-Racist Cumbria, and we're looking at a project to reimagine and retell the story and that part of the exhibition to be really authentic and to help give a voice to the enslaved people that would have been involved in trade. So that's something that's quite exciting for the future.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant, actually, to get them involved. So I guess we look forward to that. Will that be sort of next year or a year after that we might see something?
Yeah, we're hoping that the project's going to start next year. There's going to be quite a bit of work, a lot of research that's going to need to be done, with the, fingers crossed that we can get funding to carry this out sort of within the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great though when it actually emerges, won't it? Now the attraction is split into different zones or rooms, isn't it? So where does the journey begin and what do we see en route?
Well, yes, as you said earlier, it's the story of rum through the Jeffersons family. So we start in the rainforests of Antigua. So as you go into the exhibition, you'll be immersed in, the rainforest sounds, and some people in there of the before deforestation. So, really emerged into the jungle. We've got a lot of authentic parts of the building. We've still got the bonded warehouse that you can walk through and see the bottles and the corking machines that we've still got down there that were original. I say there's so much in there, from smugglers to pirates So we've got a bit of a cooperage set up, the Navy, Prohibition, and then right through to how we worked with the Jefferson's brand to try and keep it authentic for the rebrand and the reopening in the year 2000.
Right, okay. So which part do visitors most enjoy, do you think? Is it the rainforest? I guess the kids really love the rainforest, don't they?
They do, yes. I think it very much depends on what you're coming through. We don't aim it to be at anybody. There's something in there for all age groups. You know, the children come and they absolutely love learning about the pirates, about Blackbeard, and you know, the snoring sailor that we've got that often gives people a bit of a scare on the top floor. Yeah, right through. I mean, probably my favourite part of it is all about the trade that the Jeffersons would have done with different families in the area. So, you know, the Brocklebanks, even White Star Line. So, you know, was there a bottle of Jefferson's wine on the Titanic when it went down? We will never know.
Oh, right. No, I didn't know about that. But yeah, I guess there's every likelihood there probably was if they were that big in the trade. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And am I right in thinking that Mr. Jefferson's office featured in the Miss Potter movie?
It did, yes. So as you come into the building, we've got an authentic office that hasn't really changed much since we got the building. And Renée Zellweger came and they filmed, I think it was one of the court scenes. I must admit, I've not seen the film myself, which is really bad for for somebody from the local area. But yeah, I was told by my predecessor that it was such a great day of filming, and everybody couldn't believe how authentic the building was. You know, with it not being a set and made specifically for the film.
Yeah, and going on to that authenticity, how much have you had to recreate, and how much is kind of authentic belongings of the Jeffersons, etc.?
Yeah, so a lot of the parts of the building are completely authentic. Little bits will have been moved around, but especially in, or as they called it, Father Jefferson's office, that hasn't changed much at all. We've still got the original lights in there, the original stools that they would have sat at to write in the ledgers. We've got, you know, the original little sample bottles of rum that we found when they were redoing the building. So lots and lots of authentic, not props, because they are part of the history and fabric of the building.
Yeah, and you've got a very large barrel, I think, as well, haven't you?
Yes, we do. It actually goes from one floor, and when they were building it, they've had to cut a hole in and put that in there. But it would have been quite common at the time because it was a warehouse. The top of the barrel is obviously quite at maybe knee height on the top floor, but it's right by the doors. So as you would have brought up the sacks and the sugars up the davit crane up onto the top floor, you could have swung them across and thrown them into the top of the barrel, which is really interesting. And I know there's a little fact in there that at the time it would have been worth about £250,000, the rum that was inside.
Gosh, that's a fortune back then, isn't
it? Yeah, so pretty sure that would be a lot more now.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? It must be huge. What sort of size do you think it is? Do you know?
Well, I'm sure if I looked through my paperwork, I could find exactly how many litres, but I think you would probably need about 7 or 8 people going round arm to arm to completely encompass it. And
wow. We've
got quite high ceilings, and it goes through at least, you know, through one floor and a metre or so above.
And a lot of your story is also about naval history, isn't it? It's, you know, telling the story about, you know, life on the seas, terminology that they would use in the Navy, because there are some quite interesting terms that were used that I think you bring to life there, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, again, another bit that the children like when they come along, we've got a model of a ship, and when you press the different buttons, it highlights different areas, you know, whether that's the port or the starboard, or probably the children's favourite, the poop deck.
Yes. I'm sure they love that.
Yeah.
Giggles about that one, I would imagine, when the school trips come round.
Oh, definitely. And I'm certainly think that our guides probably play up to it, depending on the audience that they've got taken round. It's I mean, it's one of those parts. I mean, we live on the coast, so people tend to have sort of a real interest in naval history here. So we tell bits of the story of Nelson. You know, was his body put in a barrel of rum to be transported back after the Battle of Trafalgar, or was it brandy? You know, we definitely think it was probably rum, but I'm sure others would disagree. We've got on there about the grog and the tots of rum that would have been given to the Navy, which the Jefferson's rum was the official rum of the Navy for a number of years as well. So, you know, it infuses into British history everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And another thing, you know, smuggling has always absolutely fascinated me. And it was such a big part of life around the coast of Britain, wasn't it? You know, influencing everything from diet to nursery rhymes. So I take great delight in the fact that it features in the rum story alongside these tales of bloodthirsty pirates. You know, I'm a great Pirates of the Caribbean fan as well. So how much smuggling and piracy was going on around the Cumbrian coast? Because I think we could tend to associate it with Cornwall, don't we, in the southwest? But it was also big up here, wasn't it?
It was, I mean, the fact that we're so close to the Isle of Man, which was a bit of a tax haven as well, would probably have fed into the fact that smuggling was very prolific along the Cumbrian coast. We've got massive stretches that would have been unmanned. Obviously, being quite rural, there wouldn't have been as many customs and revenue men as there would be further south in the country. So put that alongside the fact that we're near the Isle of Man, where boats could hop on, pay a lower price, and then smuggle them over in smaller boats. It probably was a really big smuggling haven. Smuggling was completely illegal and needed to be done away from the eyes of the revenue and custom men. But it meant we had lots of caves and things around here that things could be put into. And along with that, that's then you get things together to make sort of rum butter. So if a smuggler was smuggling rum and butter and spices along and got stuck in a cave while they were waiting for the tide to go out and mix these ingredients together, we get the Cumbrian delicacy that is rum butter.
Yeah, because I had no idea until I went to your website that, you know, what we have with our Christmas pudding a lot of the time actually comes from that smuggling heritage. You know, it's just, you know, great, isn't it, how this kind of infuses history.
Yeah.
So sort of what part did the Jeffersons play in the local society in and around Whitehaven? And does their legacy live on now?
Yeah, I mean, the last of the Jefferson sisters actually only died earlier this year, which we were really sad to hear. They died without any children of their own to pass on this phenomenal family history that's a big part of Whitehaven. They were really did, as I said earlier, they had their fingers in all sorts of pies. They were big in hound trailing, lots of different sports, with cricket. They were politicians. They helped with the railways. They were involved with shipbuilding. You name it, they probably had a go at it. With business all over the world as well, they would have been well known to a lot of people.
Yeah. And your story extends right into the era of Prohibition in America, doesn't it? So why does it go that far and to another continent? And what do you have there that, you know, fans of movies like Bugsy Malone and The Untouchables might like to see?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it goes on the fact, I mean, the Jeffersons were so big in Antigua and the Caribbean that Prohibition was just over the border in South America. It wasn't too far away. So it would have been linked that way. It's something because rum would have gone across with the rum runners from the Caribbean into America at that time with Prohibition. A great part of the exhibition that a lot of people like as well is we've got some sort of redone office space of Elliot Ness's office with some of spy equipment and the different guns that they may possibly have used, you know. So we're over in that sort of downtown area with that. Which
you haven't got Kevin Costner tucked in there.
We wish.
Indeed. And you must get a lot of school trips exploring what you've got to offer. Does it tie does your story tie into the national curriculum quite well?
It does. I think we've got a lot. We cover a lot of the national curriculum in there. I mean, especially for our local schools, it's all focused on local history. Sort of everything in here is tied in to that. We've got, we cover pirates, we cover the triangle trade, which can lead to, discussions about the Windrush generation.
Mm.
Local history. We've got deforestation when you look at Antigua and how we came and we deforested everything and took it for our own and changed the world because of it. So you can come with school trips and we can tie it into so many parts of the curriculum, even if at first glance it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, no, it sounds brilliant. Now we've touched on sort of how many links there were to America, but there are really strong ones between America and Whitehaven as well, aren't there, in terms of George Washington and the American War of Independence? Could you tell, probably listeners in America will be really interested in this, so could you tell them exactly how Whitehaven features in the history of these two things?
I think there's so many ways you can do it. I mean, George Washington's maternal grandmother is actually buried in St. Nicholas's churchyard, which is just over the road from us. She married a guy in Whitehaven and moved over with Augusta, who was George Washington's father. So he did live in Whitehaven briefly before moving back over to America on her death. An interesting little story with that is when Mildred died, she was actually buried within the confines of the churchyard with her enslaved Lady Jane. So she was actually she really did care for her quite passionately, and actually when she died, she was allowed to be buried alongside her in the graveyard just over the road in St. Nicholas.
Wow,
Yeah.
nice.
It's brilliant. But yeah, with the War of Independence, I mean, the story everybody knows is John Paul Jones. I'm pretty sure the founder of the Navy was working in Whitehaven. He'd been apprenticed just over the border in Scotland, and then when he came back, Whitehaven was invaded by John Paul Jones's navy. They got as far as stuffing a few cannons up, and then I think they found the pub and got very, very drunk. And it wasn't an invasion, I think, that they possibly could have done.
I think it was the only place, though, wasn't it, in the whole of the UK that they attacked? So it's obviously his local knowledge of where the pub was.
And I think that's it. It's always the you always go back to the places that you know because you think you know their weaknesses, but yeah, you can get drawn back in.
So, whilst visiting and touring the attractions is a great thing to do, you have another side of the business, don't you, which is events and functions and weddings. So, do many people take up the chance to get married there?
Yes, I mean, we're doing really well with functions and events at the moment. We're booking a few weddings each year. You can't actually get married at the Rum Story, but with the registry office being on the same street, we get a lot of people coming for sort of the after parties
I see.
here.
Mm-hmm.
We've got one of our vault areas, which would have been the storage. It's a beautiful long arch room, which has now been made into our venue. It's got a little bar in there, and you can hire it out and have sort of up to 100 guests come with seating for 60. It's a beautiful, intimate venue. And you can also hire the whole of the exhibition as well, so you can make it a really special day. Wants to come, and some really unique photo opportunities.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do they get a little toss of rum as well? I would hope so.
We've got plenty of rums on the bar, and we can do specialised cocktails to suit your tastes.
Because rum has really started to soar in popularity again, hasn't it? So, yeah, I think from what you said, you do sell your rum still. So, do you have different varieties available now, or is it one sort of classic that you tend to sell?
We do. I mean, we've got the classic rum, which is the Jefferson's Extra Fine Dark Rum. That's, it's a really traditional dark navy rum, which is made to our own unique recipe, which is as close as we can get to the original 1785 one, as we'll allow now. We can no longer get Antiguan rum for ourselves, as it's I think it's the equivalent of like a geographical trademark on there, so it can only be sold by people in Antigua. So we've got a beautiful mix of Jamaican and Guyanan pot still Demerara rum that gives the same flavour profile. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I think for real rum enthusiasts, it definitely is up there, one of the best in the world. If you are maybe not a rum fan, then we've got a few flavoured rums as well now. So we've got a very limited edition black cherry and vanilla that's out just for Christmas. And we've got a chocolate rum, which is beautiful Caribbean spiced rum with cacao beans. And then really, really popular spiced rum. So that is, it's the same flavour profile as the dark rum, but we've added in Caribbean spices, and again made uniquely for us, just over the border in Annan by our lovely friends at Solway Spirits.
Oh, right, okay. And where can we get these rums? Can we get them online, or is it a case coming into the shop?
Yeah, you can come into the shop because we've got so much in there. It's a lovely little shop. We try and support as many local businesses as we can. So we sell all the local foods and drinks, to try and keep the economy going around here, as a small community. But we sell bits online as well on our rumstoryshop.co.uk, and we can post them out to anywhere within the UK.
Yeah, because I'm a bit of a fan of rum, so yeah, I'll have to be looking at that. You've really tempted me. The cherry sounds fantastic. So, but I do like a bit of dark rum, I have to say. So what's next for the rum story? And are there any exciting things on the horizon for 2024?
Well, the Rum Store is actually part of Whitehaven Harbour Commissioners. So we're a non-profit organisation that any funds we get go into the maintenance and upkeep of Whitehaven Harbour. So along with working with Anti-Racist Cumbria for our reimagined story of the Rum Story visitor attraction, we're also looking at helping people put on events on the actual harbour to make Whitehaven Harbour a big hub of the community again. So it would be worth keeping an eye on our Facebook pages for both the Whitehaven Harbour Commissioners and the Rum Story for different events going on between the town. We work alongside Whitehaven Town Council and Cumberland Council and the Beacon Museum to make sure that we really try and incorporate the whole of the town into any events that are going on.
Yeah, because I think if anybody's not been, it's hard to imagine, but it is a magnificent harbour, isn't it? It's pretty huge for a start, but it's just got a nice atmosphere around it, hasn't it? With the Beacon Museum at sort of one end of it. And, I've been there when the tall ships have been there, and it's just fantastic, isn't it? You can really kind of relive the days of the kind of rum trade and what was going on. So I think it's well worth a visit, isn't it? If people haven't been, it's worth seeing. So just back to sort of when they can visit you, are you open all year round, and where can they get their tickets and extra information from?
Yeah, I mean, we're open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. Last admissions in are 3 to give you time to go around. We close just between sort of Christmas, I think this year it's the 22nd of December, and we'll reopen in the second week of January just to allow us to do some maintenance. But apart from that, we're open every day of the week. We've got a little cafe on site that people can get snacks and teas, coffees, cakes, and I think some pies. Yeah, and it's great to be in the centre of Whitehaven. As you said, the harbour, it's a beautiful day out for anybody that's visiting the area. If you're up in the lakes, we're only a short drive away, and you won't be disappointed if you come. There's so many views, lots of wildlife, there's so much to do. It's really worth a drive over to the West Coast.
Yeah, because so few people do when they come to Cumbria, don't they? They think it is all the lakes, and yet the coast is so beautiful. And where can they find extra information online about you?
Yeah, so we've got Facebook and Instagram. You can just type us in the search engine and find us, or we're on rumstory.co.uk, and you can get on there to get all your information. And we just say that you buy your tickets when you get here. We're usually not to full capacity. So, yeah, and if you're travelling any distance, just give us a call before you set off, and we'll happily answer any questions you may have.
That's fantastic. So thank you very, very much, Louise. That's been a wonderful sort of exploration of the rum story and what it does and its whole history. So let's hope that you have a great season in 2024 and that you get lots of Christmas sales for this fantastic rum that you've been telling us about, because I think I'll be on there straight away after this interview buying mine. So thank you very, very much indeed. And thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Lovely. Brilliant to meet you and have this conversation.
Thanks, Louise. Well, there you go. If that's not conjured up images of Captain Jack Sparrow hopping around a beach wailing, "Where's the rum gone?" nothing will. Do head to the rum story if you possibly can in 2024. And in the meantime, plan some rum butter or rum sauce with your Christmas pudding. Until next time, take really good care of yourself and remember that life's much more fun when you're poodling around.